I'm Pat Torres. Welcome to The Story. Tonight we're starting with a tale that goes back 40 years and one man's quest for justice. Would you fight that long to clear your name? It's our big story tonight. Political scandals are nothing new in the Northwest. The history books are filled with stories of corruption and claims of wrongdoing. But what happens when the allegation turns out to be false? It can be difficult to rewrite the past. Few people understand that better than an Oregon legislative administrator named Robert Parker. He was wronged so long ago, few will remember it. But he certainly does. And he told investigative reporter Kyle Eboshi he's still intent on clearing his name.
KGW-TV, Channel 8, Portland. This is News 8 at 5, where news and information come first.
The year was 1987, and in the headlines, a legislative administrator in Salem under investigation for alleged misconduct.
Today he was sent home from his job while the Attorney General's office conducts an investigation.
We don't know what this investigation is about. We have no knowledge of the allegations or who are behind them.
Nearly 4 decades later, Robert Parker is still looking to restore his reputation and wants to be made whole after state lawmakers admitted he'd been wrongly accused.
I literally know how it feels to be blackballed.
The saga started in May of 1987. Parker served as administrator of the powerful Senate Business, Housing, and Finance Committee under Oregon Senator Jim Hill.
And he has done a good job as committee administrator.
When allegations surfaced suggesting Parker had used his position for financial gain.
Hill pressed Senate President John Kitzhaber for more information about the allegations, but was only told that it involved possible borderline ethics violations. It bothers Hill that he isn't being told who is pointing fingers at Parker.
Parker claimed it was a political hit job. He'd gotten in the way of Big Oil, who didn't want to see a bill benefiting local gas dealers move through committee.
And I suggest to you that the reason for that was that Senate Bill 664 is absolute anathema to the interest of major oil companies and suppliers.
The Attorney General's office launched an investigation.
An armed guard was placed outside the closed office of the Senate Committee on Business, Housing, and Finance.
And Parker was soon out of a job.
Senate Committee Administrator Robert Parker was resigning, effective at the end of the day.
In the following months, Parker would be cleared by the Department of Justice and a Marion County grand jury 3 different times. He was never convicted of doing anything wrong at the state legislature.
So at the end of the day, they can't find anything.
They found nothing.
But his troubles continued. Investigative files were sent to the Oregon Government Ethics Commission and the state bar, which prevented him from practicing law. His reputation was shattered.
I couldn't get a job turning burgers at McDonald's or Burger King, bro. Despite my skill set, despite my credentials.
Discouraged but not defeated, Parker fought back.
I filed a plethora of lawsuits.
He challenged the establishment and worked to restore his personal and professional life. Then, in June of 2021, the state legislature took a rare step. It apologized.
And we had a chance to be able to say, look, the state made a mistake. There are people in the state who made a mistake here.
Oregon Senator Lou Frederick was the driving force behind Senate Concurrent Resolution 22, which declared Robert Parker has engaged in no wrongdoing or unethical conduct. Once and for all, it provided him with an apology for the 31 years of damage wrongfully done.
Oregon, unfortunately, has a history of racial discrimination that most folks don't recognize.
A few months later, the Oregon Supreme Court reversed its 1992 decision denying Parker admission to the state bar because he was unfit. He could finally practice law in Oregon after waiting nearly 30 years.
Perhaps I'm still being a little naive, but I still believe in democracy. I still believe in our judicial process. I still believe that given time, we'll get it right. I just wish it hadn't taken so much time.
Time that Parker can't recover. He could have been building a law practice. Instead, he spent decades declaring his innocence, and now would like to be made whole.
Is it enough to say, I'm sorry?
No, I don't think it's enough to say I'm sorry. I think that's the point. But we have to start somewhere.
In February, Senate President Pro Tem James Manning sent a letter to Oregon Risk Management asking why Parker's open lawsuits against the state have not been settled and resolved fairly and equitably. In response, Risk Management said some of the cases are still being litigated, while others are beyond the statute of limitations.
They can't get their arms around the reality that what they did has been brought to light and exposed, and they really now do have to deal with the reality of dealing with a person of color that they trounced and left for dead. Just didn't die.
This dark chapter of Oregon history hasn't been forgotten. The question is, will justice ever truly be restored for a man wrongly accused?
Kyle's with me now. What an amazing story and a long-term injustice. I think I would just be angry at the entire world. I don't know how he keeps kind of calm like that.
He certainly is frustrated, but he also feels like it's necessary to keep up the fight. And obviously, he's put up a good fight over all these years, finally got that apology that he feels like he deserves and now wants some compensation.
Wow, yeah. Okay, so that's what's next for him, working on getting the compensation?
Right. He would like the Attorney General's office. He feels like the AG's office is basically standing in the way. And he'd like the AG's office to move aside, have independent counsel appointed that can really assess and potentially offer up some damages and settle this case once and for all so it can be done.
Yeah, wow. Well, thanks for bringing it to us. Great stuff as always. Now, let's get to the growing issue of the governor's wife and her influence in Oregon. Today, Governor Tina Kotek backtracked on earlier statements and said there will not be an office of the first spouse.
After listening to and reflecting on the concerns that Oregonians have raised when they've contacted my office, as well as the advice of my staff, I want to be clear about the following. There will not be an office of the first spouse. There will not be a chief of staff to the first spouse. And other than staff that is assigned to support the First Lady in her official duties, no state staff will report to her or be supervised by her. My office is also assembling a first spouse manual to spell out the policies and procedures related to the role, including protocols for addressing any staff concerns or complaints.
Now, if you've missed it, the First Lady has played a much bigger role in Tina Kotek's administration than earlier acknowledged. Several of you have emailed us saying, hey, look, I didn't vote for the First Lady, and I don't understand why she now has a role in the governor's office. This all came to light when top aides began bailing out, leaving the office. 5 have left so far. Today, the governor met with reporters, probably hoping her explanations would help the story die. Kind of appears to have done just the opposite, though. We're going to play you a few questions from Nigel Jaquist. He's one of the top investigative reporters in Oregon. He's with Willamette Week. I want you to get a feel for the tense back and forth between him and the governor.
I'm sorry, I'm confused as to how things will be substantively different with the First Lady from today forward, because you haven't said that she will not be having calls with staff. You haven't said that she will not be meeting with agency personnel. You haven't said that she won't be meeting with policymakers and decision makers. So can you be more clear about what she won't be doing, please?
But between now and we get more guidance from the Government Ethics Commission, I just want to be clear what she will be doing, because that's, I think, what Oregonians are asking. Is she going to go on tribe visits? Yes. Is she going to maybe do an occasional event for you? Yes. Is she going to listen if people, want to talk with her, particularly in a group setting, line workers, people who are out there, people with lived experience? She's going to listen, because I think that's what you do in this role, is you listen to Oregonians. So I can't answer that question because we don't know until we get the Ethics Commission guidance.
Will she be involved in personnel decisions?
She is not involved in personnel decisions.
Well, she clearly interviewed Juliana Wallace before she was hired and had a weekly call with her afterwards. So is that different?
That is not a... I make all personnel decisions in my office.
All right, so basically the governor refuses to rule out anything for the First Lady. She said she is a social worker with lived experience and valuable insights. On topics like this, governors will often ask their top lawyer to research the issue and then write a legal opinion about it. Well, Nigel asked the governor to release that opinion.
Governor, it's my understanding that your general counsel, Richard Lane, has prepared one or more memos on the subject of the First Lady's duties or how the structure might work. In the spirit of the transparency that you've talked about today, will you release Richard Lane's memo or writings on this topic?
I will not. The policy of my office is not to release legal opinions, no matter what they're about.
Governor, it's your privilege You represent the people of Oregon. Why won't you waive it? If you're really going to be transparent about this issue, why not tell us what Richard thinks?
I appreciate the question. The policy of my office is not to release legal opinions no matter what the topic is.
That would suggest that Richard's opinion is not the opinion that you want us to have. That somehow...
No, the answer is no matter what the legal opinion is on what matter, whatever it is in my office, I do not release those opinions.
All right. And finally, he asked about all those top staffers leaving the office. Remember, these are people who love working in politics. They love public policy and communications and building teams and making things happen. And when things run well, the governor's office is the best job in Oregon for those folks.
Governor, the departure of 5 high-level staff people could give the impression that you have put the interests of the First Lady in front of the interests of your staff who represent the interests of the public. So have you put the First Lady's interests ahead of the interests of Oregonians?
I have not.
How can you say that when 5 people have left your office, they haven't been replaced, they were loyalists, they were people who were working on the most important parts of your agenda, they're all gone?
So here's what I will say. We had staff turnover about a month ago. I had a good team before, I have a good team now. I have a new chief of staff. We had a good conversation with our staff about making any changes to our structure in the second year. I have new deputy chiefs of staff. We are hiring up. Transitions happen. I think, if I could be very honest, to equate all of those, people make choices to move on. We have a full team. We will continue to stay staffed up and do the work of Oregonians, and I'm laser focused on that.
So the emails made very clear that the reason that those people left was because they disagreed with the role of the First Lady. So if they left, that means they lost and the First Lady won. So you have clearly put her interests first.
As your governor, when I say I have not put the interests of Oregonians or put the First Lady over the interests of Oregonians, all I can say is I have not. We have been laser focused on the work that is ahead of us, and we are doing the job.
I found that whole exchange fascinating. So those are the folks. One final thing from me, my opinion. I've been a reporter covering Oregon politics for nearly 34 years now. When you have that many top people leaving the governor's office in a short period of time, it should send off fire alarms everywhere. They can't say it out loud, but they are saying it with their feet. The governor is not willing to budge. You could see in that news conference, she is tough and perhaps a little stubborn. Now, hey, those are great qualities in a leader until you add in a blind spot, perhaps a blind spot about their spouse. This story is far from over. That's my opinion. It appears the next steps will be whatever the State Ethics Commission has to say about this. In the meantime, I'd love to hear what you say about this. What do you think is going on in there? What's going through your mind when you hear these back and forths? Send us an email, will you? The address is thestory@kgw.com, or call and leave a voicemail. Our number is 503-226-5090. I look forward to hearing from you. Now let's get to the latest on the PSU library occupation tonight. You're looking at photos from inside the library that we got from a source showing some of the vandalism in there. I have no idea how this helps the protesters with the point that they are trying to make. This is from the second day in a row that campus was closed and classes canceled. And within the last 40 minutes, we learned that campus will be open tomorrow and classes will be resuming. The library will remain closed with nobody authorized to be inside. Portland State President Ann Cudd said in a statement today that it appeared that she had a deal with protesters overnight last night. They would leave the library by 1:30 a.m. and in turn not be punished or charged with a crime. And she agreed to meet with them later this month to talk about their remaining concerns and how PSU can advance the interests of peace and humanity. But Cudd said despite the negotiations and the negotiators saying that they did have a deal, they didn't sign any documents, and so no deal. Cudd says around 50 students did leave the library on their own, but that students and non-students do remain inside. Late this afternoon, Portland police said they are ready to resolve the incident. They were ready last night, basically to go in and force people out, but the incident commander decided to delay that operation, quote, for the well-being of all concerned. Police say those who don't leave the library risk arrest, though PPB will not say if or when they plan to go in and remove them. Meanwhile, the governor says she and the state police are monitoring what's going on at PSU, and they are standing by in case they're needed.
I think in other states it has looked more dramatic and troubling. I think the campuses here are charting a very clear course to try to avoid that, but I think we'll just see how it goes.
So there you go. Still ahead on the story. 4 months have come and gone already in 2024, so what kind of weather trends are we seeing, and how are we faring when it comes to rainfall totals, snowpack, things like that? We're bringing in our big hitter, Chief Meteorologist Matt Zaffino is going to talk about all that and more when the story returns. Well, today is May 1st, May Day, which means we're 1/3 of the way through the year of 2024. So what better time to check in with meteorologist Matt Zaffino on some of the weather totals and trends so far for this year. Anything stand out, Matt?
You know, Pat, it's interesting because we're coming out of an El Nino year where our expectations for average rainfall, average snowfall are low because we tend to have dry winters. But that wasn't really how this one played out. We did better than normal for an El Nino year for sure. So here's where we stand. Since January 1st to today, May 1st, 18.21 inches of rain at the Portland airport, which is a little bit above average in terms of rank. 22nd wettest, so, you know, in the top 50% for sure. Top 75%, if you will, of that 4-month period. The most we ever had was not that long ago, 2017. We had over 26 inches of rain in the first 4 months of the year. That was brutal. That was wet. Really, really wet year. The least we ever had was way back in 1938, the first year of precipitation records at the Portland airport, with only a little over 2 inches of rain for the first 4 months of the year. We don't want to do that. And that one, you know, that's an outlier as well. So we're kind of Goldilocks territory, right there in the middle, which is great to see, right? We want to have our rain. Now, keep in mind, the more important number is how much rain have we gotten since the 1st of October, not the 1st of January, because that encompasses the entire rainy season at the end of the previous year and through the first part of this year, right? Hey, now we'll talk snowpack, right? Here are 2 cameras up at Timberline. And boy, they're looking good and snowy. We'll focus on Mount Hood right now. The clouds are lowering yet again. More precipitation on the way, but in the last 2 days, over 2 feet of snow to finish off the month of April, which boosted our May 1st snowpack. Now, we'll go through a bit of a timeline again, starting on January 1st. Our snowpack was rather pathetic, only 33% of average for both Timberline and the northern Washington Cascades up on Mount Baker. By April 1st, though, we're up at 81%, and we got to about average. I'll show you that next. Mount Baker's been suffering through a low snow year for most of the year. And again, that is typical of an El Nino year. Up in Washington, they tend to have lower than average snowpack. If we look what happened on April 15th, though, did a little bit better, 92 inches, only dropped 5 inches there in the snow depth, which is important because usually our snowpack peaks around April 1st, so we expect to see big drops. We saw a little bit of a drop here, but look, from middle of April until today, we're up.
Wow.
Yeah, right? 152 inches at Timberline and 94% of average. And Mount Baker came up a bit as well, and one of its highest percentages since back in late February or even March. So again, doing better with the snowpack, which is great. Now, I told you I'd show you the trend where we went through the season. This orange line is this year, 2023, 2024. This is for Timberline. The blue line is the average. You can see it gradually ramps up as averages will do. We got to average right around, we had that big, snowfall period in the middle and end of January. Then it dipped a bit, but we got back up around average in March, stayed there, took a dip, and now we're back up to about average. By the way, each one of these gray lines are other individual years showing the peak and the lowest that we've had too. So snowpack is actually in pretty good shape, better than last year for the 1st of May. Now, with a changing climate, we tend to see our snowfall frequency drop off and see more rainy days, especially at lower elevations. So this is something we have to watch as well. Strongest declines have happened in the first half of the century in the Cascades and at low elevations. Going forward, though, we're coming out of that El Nino year and going into a La Nina year with cooler than average water here in the eastern Pacific, and that usually bodes well for the upcoming winter. So cold and wet is certainly a good possibility. As far as summer goes, Pat, looks like the next 3 months are going to be warmer than average. This is by the Climate Prediction Center with drier than average rainfall here. But, it's summer. So
Still, I remember 4th of July having a ski coat on because it was so cold when I first got here in 1990.
Oh, yeah, that's happened more than once, for sure.
That's fascinating. Thanks, Matt. Great stuff. We'll be right back right after this. Monday, we dug into the Multnomah County Chair's State of the County speech. It's kind of that time of year. The weirdly timed budgets of government are coming to an end in about 2 months, and so the execs are looking back and looking forward. So we found it fascinating that the Oregonian is now reporting that Portland's mayor, Ted Wheeler, has decided to skip the annual State of the City address. He skipped last year, too. His communications person is quoted as saying the mayor instead will focus on talking with reporters, which is, you know, some of the best spin that I've seen in quite a while, because a mayor talking with reporters is not exactly a new initiative. It would have been interesting, in my opinion, to hear what was accomplished with your tax dollars over the last year, what programs are showing promise, which should be dumped. I also thought he might want to talk about the challenges that lie ahead for the next administration. But no, Ted Wheeler is done in January. And in the meantime, Portland's mayor is basically saying, State of the City? I got nothing. Okay. Well, that's the end of our show. Thanks so much for watching. And remember, the story, our collective story, that never ends. It just keeps going. A programming note to remember, we will not have a show for you tomorrow night because of our live debate for Multnomah County District Attorney. It's going to air during our time slot. I hope that you'll tune in. I definitely will. And I'll see you right back here on Friday at 6:30. Good night.